99 out of 100 companies I go work for, you talk to the executive leaders of the business. It's, what are we focused on here? Being more efficient at what we do. Taking what we do well and doing it faster, better, cheaper. That's awesome. Nobody in the market cares. We don't care how you made the sausage, right? Just serve it up for us. See, the customer doesn't see a benefit to that, and they don't, they just expect it. So, all right, yeah, focus on being more efficient, but also start looking at the business from the outside in. What does somebody see, right? What do you want them to say about you, right? What do you want them to remember about you when they're referring you to somebody else? And what are you as a leader doing to instill in your people and in your culture this sense that we need to change our behavior to make that happen so people are talking about us the way we want to get talked about.
Welcome to the Beyond Speaking podcast from Premier Speakers Bureau, featuring in-depth conversations with the world's most in-demand keynote speakers.
Hi, I'm Brian Lord, president here at Premier Speakers Bureau and your host of the Beyond Speaking podcast. Our guest today is Ken Schmidt. Ken is a former director of communications for Harley-Davidson Motor Company, who was really instrumental in the massive turnaround that company experienced. He's one of the most well-connected people in the country and the world in terms of knowing leaders, having these shared experiences with them, and is able to talk about leadership, change, turnarounds, authenticity, loyalty, among a number of things. He's the author of Make Some Noise and also has a really entertaining podcast as well that he hosts with a couple other people. So Ken, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond Speaking podcast.
Brian, thanks for having me here at the home of Premier Speakers. This is pretty cool.
It's nice. So it's always good to have people actually here in the studio. Now, did you ride your motorcycle here?
I rode my rental car for nowhere near as exciting. I actually thought about that I said, maybe I should get it. But then I kind of looked at the weather. I said, it's good.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. Now, I am curious to know. So obviously you have this big impact at Harley-Davidson. Yeah. Were you a motorcycle guy before you got started?
Absolutely. That's one of my life's greatest passions and that got planted as a kid. Mm-hmm. So to actually be able to reach the point as a young man in my mid-20s to get the opportunity to work at a motorcycle company was sort of beyond comprehension to me.
What was your first bike, or what was the first one you rode on?
A Honda. Okay. I was a Honda guy, and I'm also a Yamaha guy. Love that stuff. And like Harley to me, especially as a kid growing up, young teen, early 20s, was like so far out of the realm of my imagination. I could never do that. And then once I got the opportunity to do it, I said, oh my God, this is like the greatest thing ever. Get to work at a place where even on your worst day, you look to the left, there's motorcycles everywhere, motorcycle parts, antiques, bikes being restored, new stuff, prototypes, competitive stuff, just hardware everywhere, just bike geeks. Mm-hmm. Fantasy come to life.
So what is motorcycle culture? I know you write about that and talk about that a little bit. What is motorcycle culture to you?
Motorcycle culture to me, that's a very interesting question because I never get asked it. Everybody talks now about networking and social networks, but in the bike world, the whole essence of camaraderie, friends riding together, community, kind of like-mindedness goes back to the earliest days of the sport over 100 years ago. There's photos in Harley-Davidson's archives, and I'm sure BMW's got them in theirs, over the years, going back 100 years, where you have these enormous gatherings of motorcycle people. There wasn't even a road system yet, okay? And cars were just beginning to appear. Motorcycle people would just sort of spot each other, kind of sense that, hey, we're the same people. And it just kind of grew. So it's always been a highly social thing. What I always tell people is, and watch, if you don't believe, two motorcycles can pull into a gas station from two different entry points. So they obviously don't know each other. I guarantee 100% of the time, conversations about to take place. They're going to talk to each other no matter what they're riding, no matter where they're from, no matter what their background is. It's a very, very cool, no barriers, just network of coolness, of fun people.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you're big on too is marketing and being able to change things, obviously going into changing Harley-Davidson. How do you get to a non-motorcycle person to become a motorcycle?
That's people ask me that all the time. They'll say, I've always been really nervous around bikes. Like, what should I do? And I stay off. stay away. I mean, you have to really want it. And people who want it know they do. This is something they've either aspired to their whole life, or maybe they rode a mini bike when they were a kid and they got the hook. A lot of people don't have zero interest. And I say, if you're not interested, enjoy bowling, whatever, whatever it is that you're enjoying, because you'll be happier. Mm-hmm. You have to really want it. You have to really love the whole idea of it.
Yeah. One of the things I also like that you talk about is the change. Yep. So you come in, so just kind of set the stage, and you've talked about this. You were coming into it. You were not a Harley guy.
Correct.
Coming into it, and there weren't a lot of people that were Harley people.
Correct.
So what made you want to try to take on that challenge, and what were the first steps you took to try and reinvent this brand into something new?
Remember what I said about always wanting to work at a place like Harley-Davidson, be in the motorcycle industry? Well, I was apparently the one in a million, because absolutely nobody else wanted to work at Harley-Davidson in the 1980s. The company was in steep decline. The motorcycle industry as a whole was down. It was a recessionary economy. Interest rates were in the mid-teens. People were buying bikes. Harley had a hellaciously poor reputation. So I got the opportunity to meet some people at Harley behind the scenes. I'm like, this is so cool. I would give my left leg to be part of this. And, the toughest sales job I had at that point was convincing my wife, I'm going to go work at Harley. And she goes, all the papers say they're going out of business. And I'm like, they are. Then why would you want to work there? She said, because I will be able to watch this happen. There's going to be one of two things happen. One, it's going to continue going down and it's going to die. So I'll be able to see all the mistakes that a company makes and be young enough to come back and do something else, but have learned from that. Or, the optimistic side of the coin, if we can turn this ship around and get it to go the opposite direction, go against the odds, go against the market, and actually improve, turn itself around, become profitable and rock and roll, I'll be part of that and get to see and be part of this great revitalization. And knock on wood, and thank God that's exactly what happened.
What when you saw that, what made you excited for that? Because that takes a weird kind of person to want to be on a sinking ship.
Well, the thing that really got me, Brian, was that the company's reputation was so bad and so grossly unfair. So people, if you were to, and there's all kinds of research done that would back this up, say the words Harley-Davidson back in the mid-'80s to somebody. What's the first thing you think of? Is outlaws, criminals, drug runners, thugs, cop killers, kidnappers of teenage girls, all this ridiculous stuff that was all kind of Hollywood fantasy going back to drive-in movies from the 60s and 70s. But that's what people saw. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's what they believed. So everyone just assumed that the guys riding by in Harleys were all criminals in the middle of a big crime spree somewhere. So there was that reputation that was a huge turnoff to 99% of the world found Harley abhorrent. And then people in the motorcycle community, that's your Honda, BMW, Kawasaki, Suzuki guys, all saw Harley as substandard. It's antiquated, it's old, it's junky, it's clunky. So as a marketer, to me, that's a dream come true. As you see what all the barriers are, you can see what the problems are, and man, if we can get over that fence, get through that barrier, kind of knock that down, we're going to start to rock, and we'll be able to say, hey, we did that. It's a really, really kind of an enticing thought.
So what's the first step to getting past that barrier?
I'll say real simple, because I did this my first day of work there, and I've done it at every company I've ever worked with since. I've done it in 99% of speeches I've done since, as I banged out 3 questions and posted them on the wall of my office. What are people saying about us? What do we want them to say? And what are we doing to get them to say it? Because at the end of the day, that's everything in business. Mm-hmm. That's every competitive lever you will ever have is your reputation. It's what the people that you serve or who know you or work for you, say about you when you're not there. Mm-hmm. And people were saying bad stuff about Harley or inaccurate stuff, as they do just about every company in the world.
Yeah.
And we said, well, let's turn that around. Let's focus on very tight messaging. Let's focus on being in front of people, being very, very human, putting a face on our business so people see us for who we are, not what we do or what we think that they do, and just continue to do it and be a source of delight for people. Because when you delight people, they tell their friends, period. Just like when you absolutely positively do not delight somebody, people tell their friends. But the other 95% of business is what's in the middle. Forgotten, not talked about, not remembered. Got what we paid for, got what I expected. Well, that does not, never has, doesn't move the needle.
And it's not just outside, it's inside too. It's like how you treat your own employees.
That's an excellent point, and we learned that the hard way at Harley, like a lot of businesses did. The long and short of it is that every association that you have with any business, 2-person mom and pop here in Franklin, 100,000 person conglomerate, is a mere reflection of the culture of that business, because we see businesses for who they are, not what they do. So as we were going out into the market, getting active in events and rallies, standing toe-to-toe with riders, we started doing a really, really good job of developing relationships and friendships and building understanding with the people that we served in the marketplace. But we absolutely weren't doing that internally in the working culture. We already see a clash there, because if we're saying one thing to the market, but not living that, it becomes obvious pretty quickly. So we said, we had to do, and thank God we had a CEO who believed in this 100%, is we have to do the same things for each other internally that we're doing out in the marketplace for our riders. Engage people, be human, get in front of them, ask them questions, involve them in any decision making that's going to impact their lives or their jobs. People appreciate being asked. They feel like they're part of something. They feel like they're wanted, welcome, and by God, that's the exact same thing that we wanted, from our customers.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder which comes first for you. Was it more if you had to put them in order? You're going into a new company that really wants to turn themselves around. Which comes first, the internal side or the external side? Oh,
absolutely, the internal side. We learned by accident, and thankfully we're able to turn that around before it got out of hand. But I will tell you, Brian, that what most companies do is throw all their eggs into their go-to-market basket. We're going to come up with our new positioning, and we're going to develop programs that have give customers a great experience and all this wonderful stuff, which is 99% of the time is just a BS pipe dream. But they don't have any business behavior that backs that up. There's no passionate voice that's coming through the business. We care about we love our customers. And then you call your life insurance company sometime. Call your health insurance company. Please hold.
Yeah.
Punch 1 for sales. Someone got to pick that call up right away. You got a problem. You're going to wait. You have, but you said all this stuff about how you care about me. So there's just always that clash that creates distrust, kills loyalty, fuels commoditization, the belief that everybody is the same. So if we have our culture locked down, rocking, people know why we're here. We know what we stand for. We know what we have to communicate to each other and to the people that we serve. Man, that's kind of a contagious behavior that the market picks up on.
How do you move out of that commodity type of thing? I know you're talking about these relationships.
Yeah.
Are there any other steps that you can say to move out of that 95%?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you look at any industry in the world in 2023, what you see is a commoditized market space. And people say, no, we're not a commodity. Yes, you are. Because if your marketplace sees you as similar in any way to the people that you're competing against, if they don't know you for anything beyond what you do, you're a commodity. You're replaceable. Like, cover the name. If they don't know who you are, they just assume you're as good as everybody else, because the odds are you are as good as everybody else. So what it really requires first and foremost is leadership within a business to say, hey, you know what? We're really not that special. We're good at what we do. We're really good at what we do because we have to be. But what we're not good at doing is competing, is having resonance in the market, being authentic so people see us for who we are instead of what we do. Thus putting more human face on the business. And that's where authenticity comes from, is humanity. When leadership focuses on that it becomes easier to build a culture that's focused on, hey, we're not going to be a commodity. We're not going to do expected, dull, boring behavior. We're not going to position ourselves the way our competitors do. We are working as an organization intentionally to stand out, be different, be desirable, to be memorable, and to be a source of delight for people.
So you mentioned being authentic.
Yeah.
How does a company or a leader, whoever it might be, discover what is authentic about them, at least what others people see that as being, and then become that even more?
What's happened, my take on this, Brian, is in the pandemic and post-pandemic environment that we're in, because people aren't going into the workplace like they used to, because people aren't, shopping like they used to, or going out and actually talking to other human beings and experiencing things. The business world's gotten really good about being as efficient as possible, either invisibly or in the digital space. And the more rapidly businesses move into digital, and everybody does it and they have to, the more their own identity gets lost, the more the humanity of the business gets lost. As you think of when you're buying something online, you can buy a cool pair of shoes like we're both wearing here. What would you do? You just go, you'd punch in, men's shoes, probably a brand name, and you see 8,000 choices come up, and your brain's not registering any of those choices. All of a sudden, there they are. They're the ones I want. Who's got the lowest price? Boom. You bought it. You trust inherently whoever it is that you're buying from. Next day, the brown box is right there by the front door, just like you expected. Meanwhile, back at that company, they're talking about their commitment to delighting people and standing out and delivering a great experience. Well, no, you didn't. You presented yourself the same way everybody else did, right? You didn't do anything for me that I'm going to remember or recommend or talk about or come back for more of. You sold me a product, right? Sold me what I came for. That, to me, that's the absolute essence of commodity. No effort, no humanity, no voice, no wit, no warmth, nothing.
I like how you talk about dominance. And so that's a word a lot of people don't like. It's kind of a scary word.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
And so where did you get okay with having that mindset of dominance? And how do you encourage others to do that, like in a good way?
What's fun to me, and I said it a minute ago, is that businesses are good at what they do. They're just not good at competing. They'll say, well, what do you mean? We market, we promote. So that's marketing. Competing is why business exists. So when you get up in the morning, it's like, well, do we want to be seen the same as our competitors? Do we want to be mentioned in the same breath as our competitors? Or do we want to crush our competitors? Well, we want to crush them. Right? That's why we got into business in the first place. That's why we're working here. Right? If they're buying from somebody else, we should see that as a loss. So my take on all of that, and it was sort of born out of when things started rocking at Harley. We basically own the market now. We've got an excess of 50% market. Sure, let's step on the gas more. Like, but we don't want to just beat people, let's bury them.
Yeah.
Because if we lose that mindset, when you start taking shortcuts, right, or take people for granted, and that's when, ugliness starts seeping back into a business. So I like the idea of a dominant mindset. I want people to see, remember, and regard me or whatever I'm doing as the absolute best, as the industry standard, and that which everybody else should aspire to. Otherwise, I'm not working hard enough.
Now, do you just know dominance from that above 50% market share, or what are your markers for saying we're being dominant?
My markers for being dominant are when we're outperforming competitors. So when we're either leading in market share, we're leading in, if it's CSI, customer satisfaction index, or repurchase intent, or whatever the data says, beyond revenue and income, that's why we're here. That's why we're competing. We don't want to be second best. We want to know, and we want the marketplace to know. If they don't know us as the superior player in the market, they see us as somebody who's coming up rapidly. They see us coming, and we want to instill fear in the people that we're competing against. When competitors are talking about you like we want to be like them, that's when you're dominant. Or why can't we do what they're doing? Why can't we be like them. And 99% of the time, the answer to that is because the leadership of those companies don't believe in it, don't want it, or think it costs too much.
And that's, I guess that is one of those things that's so important as a leader to constantly refocus and want to be brave and not rest on your laurels. So what advice would you give to leaders to not rest on their laurels?
Wonderful. Remember I said earlier that every recollection that we have of the business is a mirror reflection of the culture of that business. We don't see you for what you do. We see you for who you are, because we're humans. We humanize everything. Culture, in turn, is a mere reflection of the attitudes and the behavior of business leadership. What you see from a company, that's the philosophy of the company's leadership. Mm-hmm. Businesses that want to be seen as distinct, meaningfully different, memorable, authentic, human, engaging in ways that people like, worth recommending, worth coming back to buy more from, have leaders who are instilling that in the people. This is why we're here. Mm-hmm. But what happens, and 99 out of 100 companies I go work for, you talk to the executive leaders of the business, it's what are we focused on here? Being more efficient at what we do. Taking what we do well and doing it faster, better, cheaper. That's awesome. Nobody in the market cares. We don't care how you made the sausage, right? Just serve it up for us. So if the customer doesn't see a benefit to that, and they don't, they just expect it. So, all right, yeah, focus on being more efficient, but also start looking at the business from the outside in. What does somebody see, right? What do you want them to say about you, right? What do you want them to remember about you when they're referring you to somebody else? And what are you as a leader doing to instill in your people and in your culture this sense of, we need to change our behavior to make that happen so people are talking about us the way we want to get talked about. It's a contagious behavior. When leaders are doing it, employees at all levels of a business are doing it. If leaders do what a lot do, and kind of bang the gavel at the annual employee meeting, say, we're going to deliver great experiences for our customers this year. Click and bang the gavel, go make it happen. And people just go back to their desk, go back to their office, and it's business as usual. Nothing changes. Mm-hmm.
One thing I like that you do as well is continue learning. So what are you doing right now? Now you have the podcast right now. How do you keep learning so you can keep delivering like a fresh message to attendees and leaders?
First, I'm a voracious consumer of media. That's something I preach to college kids, high school kids, new employees. Like, if you want to be seen as valuable by the people that you serve, the people who determine the thickness of your wallet, your job title, your age when you retire, is you got to know what's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And you don't just get that by scrolling social media. Is you need to be reading and looking at what the people running businesses are reading and looking at. So you need to know what they're worried about, what the opportunities are for them out there, so that you can speak that language. Because when they know that you speak their language, they say, okay, he's one of us, she's one of us, right? This person's putting forth a little bit more effort. What I also do, and I tip hat to you with the borrowed genius thing, I say, look, there's a lot of incredibly brilliant people out there. Einstein didn't do everything by himself. He stole chunks of that from different people, different scientists, going back thousands of years. Well, why shouldn't everybody do it? We don't have to, reinvent or invent fantastic stuff every day. Let's look at what other people do well. Mm-hmm. What the Beatles did. Let's look at Bach and Beethoven, put a different spin on that and crank it out. The same thing with me in businesses. Be open to it, but also seek it out. Talk to smart people. It's half the reason why myself and my partners do our podcast, Tailgating with Geniuses, like your bar genius. I just, let's talk to really smart people. They'll be entertaining. We'll have some laughs together, but we're furiously scribbling notes. Like, this is really good stuff. We're going to use this. And we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ken, thank you for being one of those geniuses that we bring on here and,
right.
And being part of this. And thanks for being a guest here.
Hey, man.
Beyond Speaking Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so for you watching, listening, make sure to check out Ken's profile on premierspeakers.com and rate this podcast and subscribe as well. And Ken, thanks again.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for joining us for the Beyond Speaking podcast. To learn more about today's guest, visit premierspeakers.com. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen.